Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks for joining me this afternoon. I've got a great stream with some great guests that I think you're really going to enjoy. The GOP lost a critical election in the Virginia governor's race. Many people warned them, including a few people who happen to be on the stream with me today, about running a silly DEI candidate in place of, a responsible person who could actually win a significant state. Instead, the GOP attempted to run their diversity hire, lost quite convincingly, and then is now crying about the fact that their new governor, Spanberger, and I'm going to call her Spanberger because it got locked in my brain and she will forever be a lunch meat. The fact that she is now in power means that the state legislature is pushing through all kinds of radical bills, anti-white bills. They are discriminating openly against white business owners. They are manipulating elections. They are removing mandatory minimums on some of the most violent crimes you can imagine. We're going to dive into all this with our guests today, Jay Burden and Bogbeef. Thank you so much for coming on, guys.
Hey!
Thanks for having me on, Auron. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Before we dive into the topics today, guys, let's hear from today's sponsor. Hey, guys, scammers and criminals raise the stakes in 2025. In 2026, the choice is up to you. Act or stay exposed. 2025 marked a turning point where threats to privacy and security became more powerful, more precise, and harder to stop. Scams didn't just increase, they leapt forward in complexity. AI began to clone voices, text sounded like family and friends, emails impersonating banks pulled people in. The people hit by these scams aren't chosen at random. Here's how they get targeted. Your personal information, your name, address, phone number, family members, age, and online behavior, it's all publicly available online right now. It's not hidden and it's not hard to find. It's published. You can see it for yourself by simply Googling your name and address. You'll find hundreds of data brokers openly listing where you live, who you live with, and how to contact you. This is how scammers decide who to target. This is how identity fraud starts, long before the damage shows up. As 2026 begins, there's a choice to make. Do you keep leaving your information online and vulnerable, or do you take action to remove it? 2025 showed us what unchecked exposure leads to. If you want to start 2026 with less exposure and more control, use my code Auron for 15% off all Patriot Protect plans. Head to patriot-protect.com/Auron and use the promo code Auron for 15% off the yearly subscription. All right, guys, so let's dive into this. I am very, very, very tired of the GOP making exactly the same mistake and then whining about the consequences. And this is no different. Everything about this situation was entirely predictable. They were warned about what they were doing. They pushed through anyway. And now that Spanberger is simply running rampant on Virginia, they are crying about, oh, it's not fair. And how could the Democrats take all these actions? And don't they care about the principles and the procedures and all this stuff? But for people who are unfamiliar, Mr. Burden, you're a Virginia expert. You're a local on the ground. Can you give us a little bit of background? How did she come to power? What was the race? Who was involved? What are the dynamics? And why did the GOP pick such a bad candidate?
Well, that's the operative word, right? The GOP picked this candidate. There was no primary. So the previous Republican governor really shouldn't have won. It was sort of a freak accident. You may remember the Loudoun County scandal, where there was a really horrific trans crime that was covered up in the school system for all of the reasons you might expect. And this propelled Youngkin into office, right? It took it from being a race that he was competitive but still losing to within the margin of error. So he managed to get into office. Winsome Earl-Sears was his running mate, the former lieutenant governor of the state, and he declared she would be the next candidate. There was no primary. So in addition to Winsome Earl-Sears, shall we say, demographic qualifications, what else did she believe? Well, she was anti-Trump. She was anti, let's be honest, Confederate statues, which matters quite a lot in this state, as well as many others in the South. She was all in all a horrible candidate. And the idea, and this is an idea you've seen from conservatives for a very long time, is that the way that you diffuse Democrat left-wing identity politics is to try it yourself. Well, we found our female immigrant fill in the blank. And did it work? Obviously, no, it did not. Not even close. This was a resounding defeat almost up and down the entire ticket. I believe there were 2 counties in the entire state that shifted more Republican than they already were by a very scant margin. This was a crushing defeat. And this was predicted by myself, by Bogbeef's co-host Merrick, by many other figures as well. And we see that instead of the moderate that she self-described as, our new governor is insanely radical. She's pushing through incredibly radical policies on obviously the Second Amendment, but you've no doubt heard about that, but also the trans issue, abortion, effectively just legalizing fraud, any number of kind of democratic excesses all at once immediately. Additionally, further down the ticket, Republicans suffered as well. Obviously, the Democrats currently, I believe, have almost a full trifecta, right? They control every part of government, but also they lost the AG race, where you may remember Jay Jones was sending texts fantasizing about killing his opponent's children. And okay, fair enough. That was a closer race, but still, the GOP got trounced, completely and totally demolished. And people will look at this and say, oh, well, don't you know, Virginia as a state elected, on the state level, cast their votes for Democratic presidential candidates. And sure, that's true. There have been other states, namely Florida, who have been in similar situations and due to particularly good leadership have been able to become solid red states. But during his 4 years in power, Youngkin did nothing like that at all. He did nothing to make the state redder, to make it better ground, more fertile ground for his erstwhile political allies. He effectively sat on his hands, picked a horrible candidate, and now I and many others are bearing the consequences of that. Unfortunately, this is a classic conservative move we have seen done over and over and over again, and yet again, we are bearing the consequences for GOP incompetence.
Yeah, before I go to Bog, I just have to ask you, because I remember early on when Youngkin ended up winning, there were basically 2 governors that Chris Rufo seemed to be more or less grooming for the national stage. Ron DeSantis and Glenn Youngkin. I don't know if you remember this, but Rufo was very early on heavily involved in pushing policy with Youngkin, championing the, gender diversity, stuff and the, DEI in schools and mainly the transgender issue. And that was at the time was a very powerful issue. Like that was something that was really animating parents. It was really animating GOP voters. You can understand why Youngkin was building a certain amount of momentum while not really being a particularly, dynamic candidate simply on the back of something like that. And, just nothing happened. Like nothing went in there with that. You can look at DeSantis and you can have quibbles with him going after Trump or, different aspects of what he did. But what you can't say is he was an effective governor. He was taking action. He was making big changes. And very importantly, something that Curtis Yarvin has pointed out repeatedly, Florida went from being a purple state to a red state. It went from a purple state going blue to a pretty staunchly red state. And that shift occurred almost solely because the level of immigration into the state due to COVID was decidedly right wing, but also because DeSantis made the effort to clean up the voter rolls. As Yarvin joked, you could just say that DeSantis is the most charismatic and dynamic candidate in Florida history, or the other explanation is he actually cared about power and he took things that were going to win him and the party further elections, and he actually did them. Why is someone like Youngkin, who had theoretically, kind of the same coaching from a operative like Rubio, why was something similar not done there?
Well, look, I don't know the man personally, so I can't tell you exactly what, but I can say what we see oftentimes with these sort of respectable establishment Republican types, that quite simply, winning is low status. Right? Unseating the Democrats is low status. That's for icky, gross people that we don't like. And if you, like he does, seemingly desire an eternal career in Beltway politics, right? He's gotten a very lucrative lobbying job now, or a consulting job. I can't remember, but let's be honest, does it matter? That door will be closed to you if you become a man like Ron DeSantis, right? Ron DeSantis is persona non grata in left-wing America, whereas Glenn Youngkin, I believe, was plus 12 when he left. He's still very popular. So look, this would have been a tough row to hoe no matter what, right? Virginia, especially Northern Virginia, which is the population center, is obviously heavily tied up with government contracting and federal employees. So, as you remember, there was a government shutdown at the time, which was cynically extended to just pass those elections, and it seems to have worked, right? People are obviously motivated to vote, but it seems as if you're entirely correct. There was no real desire to entrench Virginia, to peel back the swamp, right? To keep it from becoming a satellite of, the DC megacity. For whatever reason, that was simply not a priority. And you were completely correct that he was handed a massive mandate on the trans issue and nothing happened. And again, we see this repeat pattern over and over and over again. And the consequences for losing, as we have seen and as we're about to see, are dire. This isn't simply higher taxes, although we're getting that too. It is incredibly punishing laws on things that people like you, I, and Bog like to do, right? The Second Amendment has become much harder. Being interested in motor vehicles is much, much harder. And again, those things won't actually make the nation safer. They won't make Virginia safer. It's already a relatively safe state. But as we see over and over and over again, the Democrats understand patronage. They understand giving state money to their friends and punishing their enemies. We'll get into the details later, obviously, but quite simply, Republicans, by and large, do not understand power. They do not understand politics, DeSantis being a possible exception to that rule.
So, Bog, I've seen you say this several times, and it's right every time. But you have Spanberger out there, and obviously, I think people knew she was significantly left wing, but she presented herself as somewhat reasonable, a relatively moderate candidate on certain issues. And then the minute she got into power, it was just revolution, revolution, revolution. I think he said something like, run like a moderate and then govern like Mao. Can you talk a little bit about why this is such an effective strategy for the Democrats and it just completely seems to elude Republicans entirely?
Yes. So, Spanberger, I think the one thing to a lot of the energy, especially on the left, during those elections was focused on Mamdani as being a revolutionary candidate, not in terms of him becoming God Emperor, but laying out a path for future mayors and stuff. Maybe we'll probably see some stuff like that in California and stuff. But Spanberger is well, now there's certain things about her that make her particular. Now Abigail Spanberger is Columbia. She was. We merely adopted government. She was born in it. She worshipped Moloch there in the swamp. From her father was a federal law enforcement agency. This is all she ever wanted to be. That's why. I mean, I'm sure to her, like, if that thing desired of her to do for X or Y policy, that would be fine by her. That's not the actual policy is not important. But yes, she does. If you ask her, especially when she was running, she was like, I'm just a. Yeah, see, the thing about state politics is it's totally different than national politics. Think about, we are all political, obsessives here. Even if you're listening to this, you are on the 1% of how many of people interested in politics. How many interviews did you really get to see of her? Now, with me, it's like 120 seconds probably total. For most people, and you have to, this is really hard, but if you read polls and you read like interviews and stuff, most people are not really connected to this stuff. To them, they like the idea of state politics as just, I don't know, there's some corny person in a suit somewhere and they take care of everything. That works great. It works great with state politics for the increasingly small amount of people but they still matter. They still matter. There's still a certain amount of people who just kind of, I don't know, I like that guy. They said something nice on TV. I voted for them, whatever. They still matter. They matter a hell of a lot less there in DC because obviously, if people don't know, DC in the 70s and the 80s I'm going to say it's the poorest place. It was the poorest city in the United States. It should have been. What did DC produce? Nothing. Of course, it produces nothing. What was the richest place? It was Detroit, making all the cars, etc. Now, DC is the richest place in the United States. It's no longer Silicon Valley. It's nothing but Ferrari dealerships and Spanberger before I don't know, in between jobs at CIA and all these kinds of cutouts and stuff, was teaching English to Saudi princes there in Northern Virginia, which is this money, and that's what it's all about. But I would say ultimately, we have a system for this. It's called a primary. Why don't we do this? She was chosen because Youngkin thought, hey, I'm a white guy, black woman. This will equal out my ticket or whatever. This will be great. This. I don't want to get into deep waters here. People have written about. There's a lot of elder statesmen, the GOP, who like choosing the Robin to their Batman to be someone who could never challenge them, who just doesn't sit in their same stratosphere when it comes to that sort of thing. And I think we see that with the unfortunate woman who ran against Abigail Spanberger.
I guess to answer ask the question is to answer it, but we'll go through the we'll go through the process anyway, because I think it's important to keep hitting this, even if it's probably obvious to a lot of people who have heard us speak before. But there's always new people joining, and I think it's critical. Guys, why is it so hard to, I don't know, find a normal, reasonable white guy and run them as a Republican candidate? What is it about that that prospect that is so terrifying to the GOP? I mean, literally every time we have ever tried and then we'll run our guy, and because he's black or Hispanic or whatever, they'll all vote for us. That has failed. It has a perfect track record of failure. I am sure that there are people who are qualified, and when they're around, that's fine. But it's very clear that the GOP, while talking about identity politics and, we don't do identity politics, we oppose identity politics, the very minute they think that they can appeal to a minority, they're going to run a minority candidate, no matter how bad they are. And the amazing thing is that not only do they run the minority candidate, they run the minority candidate even when they know they can't possibly pick up a significant amount of those votes. Let's say you tripled the black vote for Republicans. Would that get you anywhere near just picking up, 3% more of the white vote in Virginia? Would it really make significant inroads into the electoral math there by winning, double the amount of that community you normally do? I think, Jay Bird was saying they won 6-7% maybe on their best day. I mean, that's insane. That's such a comparatively small amount of people you're sacrificing the entire election to appeal to. The only way you could convince yourself to do this is if you had bought into the religion of the left. And it's just so clear that the conservatives, despite all their, we don't see color, it's a colorblind meritocracy, we don't care about identity politics. I mean, it's just an obvious lie. They're just bad at identity politics. They're just scared of playing identity politics for the one group that actually votes for them. They're fine with identity politics. It'll vest in them at every turn, even when they fail. That's how dedicated the Republican Party is to identity politics. They will play the game and lose and be happy for the chance, brag about that they had the chance to play the game of identity politics instead of just finding someone who can actually get elected in any given state.
Well, and to that point, right, the consequences for failure are very clear. Right? We understand what happens when you lose, even to a purported moderate, right? The power grabs made, both in the kind of just quality of life for normal Virginians, but also to changes to the electoral process, right? Massively increasing the amount of time for votes to come in after the election, allowing no voter ID online elections, allowing people to vouch on behalf and cast ballots for people who are disabled or not there, and also barring the ability to check into a vote that's been cast electronically. Like, these are very serious power grabs. They're changing the ways that elections are done. We know why. We've seen this run before. So, these sort of, offerings to the state religion, right? These sort of, platitudes towards the gods of DEI. Well, it's not just that you lose. It's not just that you reorganize, you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and, get a new candidate next time. It's like, no, you have dramatically made your job harder. You do not get to be the same sort of political force you were. You have taken real lasting damage, not only to your political chances as a Republican in the state, but also to the state itself, right? These consequences are very real. And the difference between even a kind of Chamber of Commerce Republican type and, Mao in a blonde wig, that's dramatic, right? We'll get into it. But, for instance, the changes to criminal justice, right? That very serious crimes no longer will, assuming this passes, right, have mandatory minimums, decriminalizing burglary in a number of different instances. Like, these matter for normal, everyday people. And so the consequences of that sort of, obsequious behavior towards the political left is not just that you don't get to be in charge and maybe you get another crack at it 4 years down the line. You are losing, really losing. And Republicans in other states should remember that, the consequences for, being too deferential to the Trump administration, working alongside, Border Patrol or anything like that. Well, they have made that clear. They want to send those people to jail. Pete Hegseth might go to The Hague. Again, might, who knows? But again, the consequences for this sort of short-sighted, ultimately futile virtue signaling to the political left is that you go to jail, to be perfectly blunt about it. So even if you're not, an ideologue, even if you're not the sort of person that believes in the kind of eternal truths that the three of us do, most people don't want to go to jail. Like, maybe Lindsey Graham would have a fun time, but like, for everyone else, that isn't a great use of your time. So act accordingly, I guess.
Yeah, Bog, I feel like I am taking the crazy pills on this one because we'll get to all of the crazy stuff they passed, of course. But Burton pointed out that one of the first things they're doing here is rigging elections, right? They're making it, you can just do it online. Who needs any kind of actual identification? I believe one of the laws passed is that any vote has to be counted by a machine. You're not even allowed to review it by hand. We know that we know that they are removing their cooperation with ICE, with the federal government when it comes to deportations. So they're going to ensure that illegals are in the state and therefore are going to be able to vote, because you're basically removing all mechanisms by which you would prevent voter fraud. I mean, it is very blatantly a situation where losing one election means losing all subsequent elections. Like, that's where we're at the moment. And it's particularly frustrating because we've watched several Republicans in state legislatures say, no, we won't redistrict. We refuse to force this. We're seeing Republican senators saying we refuse to pass the FACE Act. We're all across the board. Republicans are saying we will not clean up the voter rolls. We will not force cleaner elections. We will not do this. And the Democrats get in power and they're like, oh no, we'll absolutely do this. We're going to radically redo the vote. And look, all of us here are skeptical of democracy. I don't think we need to go into the problems with democracy, but assuming for a moment that you're a democracy enjoyer, like, how can you sit back and just say, oh, well, whenever they're in power, they can change all the rules for voting to ensure that we never get elected again. And when we're in power, we have principles that say we can never touch this. I mean, even if you are like the world's like most mainstream, Rush Limbaugh, Dennis Prager, talk radio conservative, how can you look at this and not understand the absolute disaster you are already in the middle of watching?
Yes. It's locking states up. So this is something that I think, we saw here in Florida. I've heard in Ohio. I don't know as much about Ohio, but we definitely seen, a lot of these states took serious action. If you look at what Florida's laws with ballots, they're very, very good. And this is why, if you're a Democrat, you're screwed if you're running in Florida from here on out, because you can't cook up votes like this anymore. I think everyone's looking around, and any of these of course, most states are out of reach. Most states have whatever too much rural or too much urban to be in play. But all your swing states right now are being locked up. And I think we're seeing that in Virginia. We've obviously on our side, we saw that in Florida and Ohio. Very, very, very important. Very, very important. This is going to be big. Now we've seen, okay, maybe we could, and by the way, if you don't know, I mean, I don't want to get into it too deep. I know used to you get banned and stuff, but I mean, remember, I don't, the idea of democracy. No, I don't like democracy. However, I'm not God Emperor. This is the game that we're born. This is the game we must play for right now. This is the game. So this is serious business. This is people's lives are on the line here, which obviously these Democrats understand. That is the game. So I mean, look, if you don't have signature match, I mean, if you know the names of people who live in a nursing home, do the math. Like, look, it's not difficult. You can do it. You can do anything. That's just signature match. How often does that even come up? Now we're doing like you can vouch for people and look. This is very, very serious. Real quick on the whole DEI stuff like this. What a lot of these Republicans don't understand is that Democrat votes are not based on like we're morons. We are really outside of politics. We want in, but we're outside of politics. Democrats are not. George Wallace, the most racist man, the great governor of the state of Alabama, won massive amounts. Like he won like 90% of the black vote. You know why? Because black votes are not based upon this ideal black vote or whatever, or in all these other minority votes. They're not based on. Did you watch Meet the Press? Did you see the interview with Chuck Grassley?
Policy discussions.
Yeah, they will starve if they don't continue to get the checks from the government. All these rich ass people in Northern Virginia, they live off of the government. Whoever keeps the money coming in is going to get the vote. They don't care what color they are. We do. And this is something that feels stupid to say, but like, yes, being like the black conservative guy, it is powerful in like TV and debates and stuff like that. It's like, did you see it's a gay guy, but he's against the Democrats. I know it sounds weird, but like, there's a lot of TV does have a huge effect on Republican politics, and it does have a big effect there. Finally, on the point of collaboration, which is a big thing that we're talking about here, I'm going to read, but this is from a book written 50 years ago on the city of Chicago, but this is just really, really stuck with me. The rationale of collaboration. Why do so many Republican ward committeemen cooperate with the Democratic machine in Chicago? The answer to that probably lies in a variety of reasons. In some cases, Republican committeemen are professional politicians in politics for almost purely economic or political advantage. They have little interest in the party, its philosophy, or its future prospects. It is a way to make a living. The work isn't too hard. The demands are not great, and collaborating with the Democrats is a form of social security, since the Democrats will probably be in the office for the foreseeable future. For others, there is a pragmatic recognition of the facts of political life in their wards. Without jobs, money, and workers, the best they can hope for is to make a legitimate effort and bring in as good a vote as they can. This is the good part. But they can get a smattering of patronage jobs from their own party, a medium-level job for themselves, and an opportunity to hold a title in the Republican Party. For mediocre men with limited goals in life, the payoff, small as it is sufficient.
Yeah, this is a situation where we have the minor nobles, right? Like, and the Democrats have the real royalty. Yeah, the guys who are running in the Democratic Party, they're the natural rulers. They're the people who have the status. They're the people who have the connections. They're the ones who expect to profit, to rule, to have power, to wield it. The Republicans, well, they're just there to watch the chuds, right? It's more of a managerial position. You don't get to make a lot of decisions. You're never going to really have power. but you do get to have some status, and you do get to line your pockets from time to time. And yeah, nowhere to the degree that the Democrats do, but far more than you could expect, running your car dealership back home if you're very lucky. And so they obviously grab a hold of something like this. And this means that ultimately what we're looking at long term is the fact that, the national GOP and many conservative, just the rank and file still think of this thing as Mr. Smith goes to Washington, right? Like, we get together, we debate politics, whoever makes the most convincing argument will win the votes, and that will provide popular sovereignty to the winner. In reality, the left is playing machine politics. They are building political machines everywhere. They are rigging the rules. They're bribing people. They are ensuring that there is a dedicated voting base in every scenario, whether they do it through voter fraud or open borders or open patronage and bribery. They don't care. They don't care why you vote for them. They care that you vote for them. You're not going to hear them making stories about how, well, no, we would never win this through, some other means. We would never deceive people. But no, it's not about principle. It's about power. And they secure it time after time after time. The vote is a machine. You will vote Democrat. End of the story, right? There is no debate. You're in the right demographic. You're a beneficiary of the machine. You are going to work with the machine. The Republicans have to win the vote every single time. They have to fight for every single vote. The Democrats just start with a large amount of votes already pre-planned for them, and they feel like they have to push a few over to get to the threshold. And as long as that is the default way American politics works, the Republicans are going to lose, because even when they win elections, they don't do anything with them. They never secure power. They never take any victories that make the next victory easier. Instead, all they do is go around saying, I guess maybe, we'll try to shrink some government, cut a tax or two. That's it. They're not willing to take any serious action, as soon as Democrats win, we see this complete leftist revolution. So let's get into some of the bills that are now being passed. We already mentioned that they are no longer complying with ICE. They are no longer cooperating with ICE. So that means that they are effectively now a sanctuary state, not just a city in Virginia, but the entire state is now effectively a sanctuary state, just like something like Minnesota. They have also declared that they are no longer, like I said, allowing basically any way to check votes except electronically, which definitely is not based entirely on the desire to commit fraud. You can vote online and all these other things. You can have someone, as your proxy or verify for you. We have the removing of the 3 strikes law. So basically, Virginia had a 3 strikes law eventually. And in that case, at least had to be like in the same field. Like apparently with robbery, you needed to get like 3 robberies before it escalated into something larger. Now they've removed that entirely, which is effectively removing the criminality from large amounts of robbery. You also have removal of mandatory minimums for things like rape, child pornography, all kinds of manslaughter, all kinds of assaulting a police officer. Yes, sir.
Additionally, they have made it illegal to mention prior criminal history in court. Yeah. So, for instance, if you wanted to say, not only has this person done this, but we can't tell you the fact that this is his 14th such conviction. That is just another kind of ancillary detail.
Yes, that was my next. I was going to say, you can no longer mention repeat felonies. There's no longer additional penalties for repeat felonies. So your criminal history no longer matters when it comes to sentencing. That basic thing that was like the building block of all jurisprudence in the United States, now just out the window. Oh, and finally, as you say, they are literally just instituting the Somali fraud scheme. Like directly, they're just reinstituting it. They're creating the exact same childcare programs with the exact same incentive structures. And finally, the coup de grace on top of all of this, the one that's got everybody up in arms today, with a lot of people. Yeah, I saw Meghan McCain saying, "How could this be legal?" And I just tried not to scream into the void for a good hour. But they have now announced that their state contracts will not be awarded to white guys under $100,000. So if there's any kind of payment under $100,000, white people don't even bother, man. You cannot, this is South Africa. It's over. White people can't make this money. And if it's over $100,000, you must give preference to a woman or minority as long as that difference is no more than 5%. So we're going to pay a 5% premium to women and people of color over white people just because they're women and people of color. You can have a lower bid as a white man, but you have to outbid them by more than 5%, because if it's within that 5% margin, they still get preference. So explicit, open racial preference, completely eliminating white guys for anything under $100,000 and is disadvantaging them for everything else. And guess what? They passed this knowing Army Dillon's sitting there threatening civil rights lawsuits. So clearly they don't think the Civil Rights Act is going to do anything about this. I know that'll spin all of us up on this one, but whoever would like to take that incredible slate of legislation first, feel free to go ahead.
Well, I'm torn because I love manslaughter and crime. This is it's funny, but I mean, you have look. This is serious business. I think of the pastor there in Minneapolis who, I'm telling you, what Don Lemon was doing was applying pressure, and they wanted him to freak out. He wanted him to swing on him so bad. He was all over that pastor. He was on top of him, and hey, don't push me, man. And hey, I'm just here to work. We're just here to worship. Hey, but what's going on? What do you think about this? And look, that you must have ice cold veins once you step into this arena, because these people are. This is serious, man. This is war. These people are. You can look at what they've done here. It is it's on. Well, let's talk about this the contracting thing. Now, Harmeet Dillon is saying, well, this is obviously unconstitutional. Hopefully, it is because of the idea.
Which Constitution, the fake one or the real one?
Yes, because hopefully it is because of these executive orders or whatever. But the whole thing that I was angry, like when I first started getting into this kind of stuff and reading these alternative ideas, what made me angry was that no one on Fox, no, I never read anywhere, no one told me that about disparate impact and all these kinds of things. Like, look, that law, it's really simple. I mean, it's very obvious. Anyone should do this if you're able to. Look, any group that votes 70% plus Democrat, you have to give them money before you give money a Republican. I mean, why wouldn't you do that? Now, of course, this gets into why you even have. I mean, this gets into very, very, very deep quarters quick. But I mean, that is, it's just, hey, Democrats won. You have to give money. You have to give money to us. It's very, very simple.
Oh, 100%. Like, clearly, that's what this is. Oh, now on, everyone who gets, a little bit of, a little bit off the government teat. Well, of course, you could probably run the general, statistics on government contractors. But let's just make that more explicit, right? We said earlier that, the black voters in Virginia went 93, 92% to Spanberger. Well, guess what? You just got given a pathway to free money, right? You don't even have to be good at your job. You can be at least 5% less efficient. You can charge 5% more than your competition and you'll be given a leg up. Now, let's assume that there are people in that industry who want to stay in that industry, right? Who want to continue to get government contracts. Well, if you're a firm, right, that relies on government contracts, what are you going to do? When you're hiring your next CEO, when you're looking for your next executive team, who are you going to be looking for? Oh, the people who give us an advantage. So this is a double system of patronage, right? You are providing entry on two different levels to your guys, to your voters. And really, that's what it is. That's all this is. The Second Amendment stuff, anything else, is punishing their enemies, the people they hate in, the gross, icky part of the state that I live, the chuds. We're punishing them and rewarding our friends. That's all this is. When I say all, I don't mean to say it's inconsequential, but it's a very simple formula, one that Democrats clearly understand, Republicans clearly do not. And when we look at the scoreboard for the last 80 years of politics, although let's be honest, we could take it back 100, even longer than that, who's winning? And at a certain point, when you're down 100-0, it's starting to enter the third quarter, when do you look up and say, hey, maybe what those guys are doing is the right strategy? However, apparently, our guys have looked at that and said, well, clearly the problem is we're not doing our game plan hard enough. The game plan that led us to this absolute disaster of a situation. And until that changes, we will continue to see these results. A great example, right, is the absolute feckless Indiana Republicans who had a chance to redistrict their state. They apparently struck some sort of deal behind the scenes with the Democrats of Maryland, saying, hey, if you don't do this, we won't do this. And not only did the Indiana Republicans get snookered, right? The Maryland Dems are apparently going straight ahead with what they wanted to do anyway, but they completely blew their opportunity. So even in a situation where they control all the cards, they're so inept at politics that they're not only screwing up their own state, but screwing up others. It's almost impressive, right?
Well, and here's how impossible this stuff is to get rid of. Like, just to give people an idea of, once these programs are dug in, why they're such a problem. So in the last day or two, Chris Rufo, to his credit, has started a campaign because he discovered that the Trump administration, the one that wrote a executive order banning DEI across the board in the executive branch, their small business division is still preferring minorities and women when it comes to small business loans. Like, literally, the Republican Trump administration, the one who has declared DEI the enemy, the one who signed an executive order banning DEI, is still, as of this moment, hand walking women and minorities through the process to prefer them for small business loans over white men. In fact, I know personally a business that put a Hispanic woman in charge for no other reason than it qualified them to get this loan, because that was already the policy under Biden. And now it's still the policy under Trump. So even in an administration that has explicitly repudiated this ideology, which has written executive orders banning this ideology, buried in the bureaucracy, still functioning a year into the administration, is a anti-white law that is anti-white directive that is still keeping white guys from getting the same loans that women and minorities would get. And so this is, again, and that's in something where we have control, theoretically. Like, we have won the victory. These people are aware of everything that's going on. They are trying to eliminate it, and they can't even find like obvious giant programs in which they are preferring people who would never vote for them and hate their guts and want them dead over their own voters. So you think that's not going somewhere in Virginia? I mean, you think Army Dillon's going to get rid of that when it's literally happening inside her own administration? It really is insane that we continue to just, this is one of those scenarios where the whole, like, it just needs to be blown up seems far more reasonable than pretending we're going to go around and root out every little bit of this stuff when it's baked so deeply into the system.
Yeah. There's a lot of, I think there are some good, because look, let's be clear. The reason I read that passage, this is collaboration. Like, if you look at these laws, like, this is hard to, I didn't understand this, but how does the government work? The government is like, you could replace, like, 99% of the people who work for the government are contracting employees. The government puts out bids, and who wins the bid? It's the lowest bidder. So you're like, oh, well, it's just 10% or whatever. No, that means they win the bid. So who wins the bid? It's things where all we care about is that white men are not in charge. Look, that is psychotic, man. Like, I don't think Stalin would have done something like that. That's crazy. That's completely crazy. If you go along with that, look, that is serious. That is collaboration with the enemy. Because what you have, there are people that are like, well, I don't hate other races. I don't hate single women, stuff like this. So, well, every policy I write needs to have all these voters in mind. That's not how politics works. You represent your clients. Here's the thing. They have representatives. If the Republican Party did not, I know we had this, we were worried that the historically black colleges were going to miss out on something. The thing is, you don't have to worry about them. They have the Democrats. Let me tell you, they'll be fine. They'll land on their feet. You know why? Because they actually have people that they have the Democrats, and they're going to make sure that they get their stuff. You worry about yours. That's how the system works. You're the prosecution. You try to convict the guy. You don't worry about what could they have a defense. That's you have to represent your client. You must represent your client. That is your job. You are a representative. You speak on their behalf. That is the job. That's what we need. And this is serious business, man. And it's getting more serious by the day. There are people scandalized every day. Now, we watch in Minneapolis. Look, Minneapolis, look, I tried to act like I am too cold for this, but they're even breaking the patronage model. It's just actually the people in the government there protesting. I don't even know how to do the math on that. It's like actually the government. I don't know. That it gets weird.
Yeah, normally you at least have some kind of plausible deniability by acting through foot soldiers and agents. But yeah, when you're just directly injecting yourself, when it's very clear there's
Yeah, I'm the state attorney throwing the Molotov cocktail. Yeah.
Right. I think we're pretty deep into it. Guys, I know we could go on about this, but I do have to beat feet. I'm going to be on Timcast tonight, so I do have to travel. So let's get over to the questions of our people here real quick. But before we do, Mr. Beef, where can people find the Good Old Boys program?
We're on Kick twice a week, 8 Eastern, kick.com/goodoldboys, GOODOLBOYZ. We're also on Patreon. We have a big new series covering the HBO Rome show. It's doing very well. Lots of people enjoying it. We do about 6 hours of analysis commentary with a real classics guy. And that's on our Patreon.com. Good Old Boys, GOODOLBOYZ. I'm on Twitter as Bog_beef.
And Mr. Burden, where do people find your show, even if you haven't seen HBO's Rome?
Oh, that's 100% true. I have not. I'm Gen Z, comes with the territory. I have seen no cultural products really whatsoever. But
just watching
I will reiterate,
TikToks, that's all you do.
100%. Like if you guys could edit Rome with like Subway Surfer on the bottom, that would really be great for me. That's really the only way I can get through something. I will say I've been listening to that series. It is great. It's quite good. So be sure to check that out on the Good Old Boys Patreon. My stuff, Jay Burden Show, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere you listen to podcasts. And again, Auron, thanks for having me, dude.
Of course. Let's go to the questions of the people here real quick. Bren Zwingle says, I'm sure my Turbo Lib family in Charlottesville is so happy a Democrat won. Yeah,
I know they are.
Yeah, it is quite a bit of a disaster to see what has happened to what was once a key Southern state. Yes, sir.
Charlottesville is particularly poignant because it is lib central within that kind of area of central Virginia. And they hate the fact, like genuinely hate the fact that everything cool about that town was built by a guy who owned people. And it's true. They can't get around that fact that everything cool about Charlottesville was put up by a guy who owned slaves. And so they have this incredibly schizophrenic relationship where everything is or was at one point named after Lee, Jackson, Jefferson, the whole lot. And they have a bunch of cool stuff that they want to keep because it's nice. But they're constantly in this sort of schizophrenia where they feel like they need to just, ironically enough, whip themselves for the fact that they live in a cool place built by a guy with values from a different time.
I need to go there before they turn it into a well, I don't even want to speculate there. Is that where UVA is and Thomas Jefferson designed all this stuff?
Yeah.
If you ever you hear that Thomas Jefferson was a genius, but you look at he was like, in terms of a polymath, he's like his archaeology. He was giving lectures on archaeology in developing techniques that are still used today, and just like unbelievably, like we had it all, man. We had it all.
Randall Shirker says, at this point, any Republican not gunning for power is a fundamentally unserious person at best and a closet Democrat at worst. Yeah, and this is why I harp on this constantly. The vast majority of the Republican establishment is still completely out to lunch on this. I don't know what the conversion rate is. I don't know how many people we can reach. We've gotten to a few of them. There's a few good, guys in the legislature at this point. But in general, this is still a message that has to be pounded mercilessly into the skull of every Republican, and I really see that as my job. So that's what I do. Mr. Nikes says, I appreciate you calling me Mr. Nikes, but without Fed posting, some of us are way past the point of caring about elections. We're beyond that. I hear you, man, but as Bog pointed out, this is the game that we have right now. Whether you like it or not, elections are what convey legitimacy in the minds of Americans. They might not be fair. The idea that they work as some kind of marketplace of ideas might be a joke. We might be, aware of all of those realities, but we still have to go through the motions at this point. Maybe at some point that will change. But at the moment, Trump can only secure power through elections. Legitimacy is considered conveyed by elections. And so we need to, have backup plans, I guess. But ultimately, you still need to understand that doing things like cleaning voter rolls and making sure the electoral process works properly is actually still the closest route to power in the United States. It would be foolish to completely discard that, even if we understand that ultimately that might not be a final path towards saving the country.
I had this thought resonates with me because I had this thought. I was like, it's so like, why are things have gotten so bad and people are still more afraid of lawyers than they are of violence and et cetera. And I was like, this is wrong. This is against the moral order and stuff. And I'm really into Julius Caesar and the fall of the Republic and stuff. And it was the same way there. I mean, it was the same way there. Like even at the end, I mean, even when people are dying, they're still, hey, check the record. I did ask for X or Y. Like it's still. I don't think that I think it does make me angry at my core. It shouldn't be like that. We should be the real deal. Stop talking about all this nonsense and these laws and stuff like that. No, I don't think it changes.
Yeah, people were still quoting laws to men with swords even after Marius and Sulla, right? Like if that doesn't tell you how deeply ingrained that mentality becomes, then nothing will. Author in California says, waiting for the inevitable Khan Inc. essay, the conservative case for protesting in houses of worship, with references to vague incidents in the 1791 Connecticut to back up the claim. This is the blessings of American liberty. Yeah, I mean, the good news is I don't think I've heard a lot of conservatives backing away from the Don Lemon stuff, but it looks like you might have a different thought there. I think you're still muted there, Jay.
Professional podcaster, ladies and gentlemen. You're partially correct, Auron, right? That self-described conservatives have been pushing back on this. But I believe Arthur is making kind of a shot across the bow to David French, one of my favorite
of
punching
course.
bags.
I have David French blocked on Twitter, so I don't see what he says.
Spit.
I can assume, yeah.
Well, I don't. I'm a great collector of his work. If you need to write a Substack article, just look at what David French is talking about. It's a free one. But in all seriousness, right, you're seeing the kind of left edge of the evangelical world very much pushing towards that, right? Very much saying, really we're at fault because we allowed this gross evil, maybe aligned with ICE pastor, to have a church. That's the real problem. And look, those aren't conservatives. Those aren't normal people, right? But they exist, right? You can check the Holy Post. You can check a few other of these kind of just amazing journalistic outlets for exactly that take, Arthur.
Matt Gates says, the only way to get Republicans to do what the base wants is if the base threatens to withhold their votes this year and in 2028. That's the only leverage the base has. Yes and no. So we've seen the zero seats thing, right? We saw this in the UK. And in one way, I guess it worked. The Conservative Party is pretty much done for. Even the Labor Party has seriously wounded itself with the quality of its governance. Simultaneously, look at the UK right now. Like, people are getting arrested for posting on Facebook, and the Starmer government has been absolutely totalitarian. So is the accelerationist option the one that works there? I don't know. I mean, the good thing is the UK is a few years ahead of us on that timeline, so I guess we can kind of watch them and see if it's worth investing in. But I am somewhat skeptical that, like, ensuring Democrat victory is ultimately the way forward. I hear you that the Republicans are completely useless and don't deserve our vote, but honestly, at that point, prepare for the revolution, man. Like, I don't see, like, sitting out a few elections on the Republicans and putting the Democrats in power. Democrats are in power for 8 years. The country's done. Like, you're never going to win another election. Oh, I finally got the Republicans to take me seriously. Yeah, just in time to make sure that you can't vote, and every illegal in Venezuela or Caracas or whatever, they're the ones who are going to be able to vote. Like, come on. I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong on this, but I don't see how that's an advantage for anyone at the end of the day.
I get the idea. It comes from like basic power dynamics and stuff. There's nothing like if you force anything to be 100% victor, then like it basically must split. It just kind of has to. However, I mean, if you look at history and stuff, I mean, the Communist Party in Russia became defined by there was no longer any. It was the internal conflicts of those guys. So you could much. I don't see any basic reason why this would reproduce some kind of fantastic conservative revolution. You would probably get the NIMBYs versus the YIMBYs is the future right and left of American politics, etc.
Elijah Timon says Trump is stacking wins to secure the American empire for the next 100 years of dominance, just to deliver it into the woke hands in 3 years. Yeah, I mean, there is unfortunately some truth to that. I understand what Trump's trying to do. If Trump had, a lifetime appointment, then maybe, strengthening the American empire would be an advantage. But if you don't fix the electoral issue, then everything you do, as Elijah's pointing out here, is simply strengthening the Democrats. You're just handing them that strengthened power at the end of the day. So you have to fix the voting issue. You have to fix the domestic issues. You have to fix these things before you go out and secure American power abroad. Don't get me wrong. I know we need access to oil and rare earth minerals and all that stuff, but it doesn't matter if the Democrats are in charge. That's really the only thing that should matter at this point. And
those are the only things he can do without a judge telling him he can't.
We've had that discussion as well, and I think that's true. Is unfortunately he is more sovereign in South America than he is in Chicago. No, I'm not from Red Riding Hood says 3 of my goats at the round table, absolute peak. Well, thank you very much for coming by and listening, and appreciate you supporting the show. Make sure that you're checking out Jay Burden's stuff. Make sure that you're checking out Bogbeef and the Good Old Boys. And of course, if it's your first time on this channel, you need to click subscribe, bell notification, all that stuff, so you know when we go live. If you want to get this broadcast as a podcast, you need to go to the your favorite podcast platform. And when you do, leave a rating or review. It really helps with the algorithm magic. Don't forget, I will be on Timcast tonight if you want to watch. Thank you for watching here. And as always, I'll talk to you guys next time.